Good evening and welcome to the Problem of Being Awake. It's Ben, I'll be your host. I chose this title because it's really quite a juicy thing to think of as a one against the other equation. Because society has altered itself through the woke ideology, which has been creeping in for much more than 10 years, probably close to 22, but the last 10 years, certainly the last 7, it's got more and more and more. Part of that is a declassification of gender dysphoria, meaning being trans, which was a mental health disorder and had affected 0.004% of people over 40-year studies. Now, 5 years after then, 2019, 5 years later, it's transmania and all the kids are queer. It's ridiculous. But the racial division, who started it? Well, 2 people. Joe Biden, by declaring that America is a systemically racist country. That's not a good thing for a president to say about a country, because the system can't be racist. Racism is an internally held belief, as is gender identity, where you believe you're another gender. They're not facts, they're just internally held beliefs. But racism, if you're actually racist, it will come out in your speech and in your actions, because your subconscious is designed to bring all of that to the fore for you to then act upon. So the idea there's unconscious bias or implicit bias that every white person is racist, and all of this talk of in America is a great model, a sort of placeholder for the conversation, because it is where this is all kicking off. And you've got meritocracy versus idiocy as well. That's, the opposite to the best person and the most qualified person who wanted the job gets the job, to DEI, where all jobs are 50% women, men, straight away. And then we'll go minorities downwards. So you need a 3% Hispanic, transsexual, gender fluid, non-binary girl, whatever. But that you can break that down, and that's how DEI eventually does break things down. It breaks everyone down into classified groups, of which they play a hierarchy in who is the most oppressed. And they try to indoctrinate the kids, which they've succeeded with Gen Z, into seeing everything through the lens of oppression and racism, and then confusing them more by teaching them CRT, gender query, and having trans story hour. It's all a load of nonsense and garbage. DEI has only been held effective in countries where they don't have free will. Dictatorships, communist countries. It can't exist without it, because what it does is it finds racism. Its job is to find racism where there isn't any. Now, I'll go on to Robin DiAngelo and her book White Fragility and her subsequent books. She is not a subject matter expert of anything. None of this was reviewed. She doesn't have any evidence for one chapter of any book she's ever written. They are only her own thoughts, but she basically indoctrinated society in the people of far left to believe that alpha males were awful, and that white guilt, white fragility, and whiteness is a problem for our era were all of her ideas. And they called for white people to be grovelly apologists. Now, I'm 42 years old. I'm a white heterosexual male, and I live in England. It's a prosperous enough country. Now, I actually have no privilege that you could point off. And if I told you things which are in my other videos, if you want to come up, they would shock you, because I actually have been the victim of a very, very vicious act of sadism because of the colour of my skin in a third world country. So the only thing you need to know about skin colour is it's a distance that your ancestors initially moved away from the equator when we left Africa, when there were 13,000 human beings left alive, because our first forms of racism were black on black tribal warfare in the early days, and typically they didn't know better. The human race just escaped extinction by that small amount. And then, racism was always part of the Macedonian Empire, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire. Every part of civilization had a fear of the unknown. Okay? A fear of the unknown. That's fine. We don't have a fear of the unknown anymore. There's not much left. We're not going to encounter a peoples who we knew nothing about before. We know the globe. So the racism should obviously be at its lowest now. And if people were left to their own devices, I sincerely believe it would be. But as it is, it's front and centre of everything you do. The amount of things I do I'm called a racist for is ridiculous. And I'll say that it happens, and, people call me a racist, and I go, it's ridiculous. I made a brilliant video about Kemi Badenoch, how it's so refreshing to have somebody of her ethnicity put into power because of her confidence, her self-esteem, her work, her dynamic personality. And she's the very opposite of a DEI hire. She got that job in spite of her skin colour, or with the skin colour, but not because of it, because she deserves it. And people called me a white. That was all I got in the comments, was like, white supremacist, racist, bigot. I'm not a bigoted person. Most of the people I know aren't bigoted, but you will always have a part of every society, every village, there will be a bigot. So if you map that up, there's going to be a few thousand bigots knocking around here or there, but they are very much in the minority. Most of us do agree with the Martin Luther King movement, which is judge someone by the content of their character, not the colour of their skin. It's the same as on a mental health side. You should only try and be better than the person you were anybody, because you've got you should only try and be better than the person you were yesterday, because you've got no idea what person anyone even is today. Because everyone's putting on a facade in certain areas of their life, more so at work than at home, but still facades everywhere. No one's deep enough to give their whole self to open book staffing. Not really. But skin pigmentation it's just the distance from the equator that your ancestry moved. It shouldn't be the cause of all society's ills and everything to blame on it. The race baiters are the ones who really need to have a good hard look at themselves. The strongest example would be the Democratic government. I mean, Joe Biden declared it racist, and Kamala Harris started a bail fund for $2 billion worth of rioted businesses over the George Floyd riots, of which just less than 30% were black-owned businesses. So it was just looting and rioting, because that's what our young do, because they have to protest. And I'll tell you something. Sorry, I'd cut that, but they literally have to protest because they're still trying to work out who they are. They've been brainwashed, which is very unfortunate. That is a temporary state of affairs for them. They do say when a leader of a country is brainwashed, a lot of the country gets brainwashed with him. But everything's not about race. It's, the distance from our ancestors moved from the equator to the north or to the south, whatever you like, and obviously wider. That accounts for our skin colour. Doesn't mean anything about us. It doesn't say anything about us. So it's a really simple and easy thing. No, are reparations good? No, because who's going to pay them? You'll have black people being paid by people who can't afford to pay anything at the moment. Everyone's too struck. So, and most good, strong, black, conservative people balk at the idea because it suggests that they can't achieve. And that's been a democratic plan for about 25 years. They can't achieve without the government. They need to have a big government, and they need to be a minority, and they can never get ahead. And in reality, the real reason for blacks and minority in crime, and it's absent parenthood, absent fathers. The government made it very lucrative to not have the father in the home. So 80% of black people grow up without a father in the home. That's obviously very big on discipline, hence rising criminality and crime. If the government didn't do that, and people, look, some amazing figures just spring up and take over and like not having it. It's, you know, being black is a part of your identity, but it's only a small part. It's no more than your nose. Unless somebody makes it so, and that's the problem. Everybody makes everything about race. Here are things can't be racist. Statues can't be racist. Systems can't be racist. Buildings can't be racist. And who gets reparations for what? Because most of us, our ancestors have all been enslaved. Mine has, yours has, whoever I'm speaking to probably has. Because that's the way we went about building our empires around the world. And we now should be civilized enough to lay all that to bed. And skin color, like, doesn't, you know, this idea that one minority has to link into another. The trans stuff is absolute nonsense. Anything beyond the 0.04% of people who really do have gender dysphoria and always choose to be either the opposite sex or stay in the same body, and 85% of the time with therapy and at 18 years old, knowing the procedure, 85% stay in their own body and enter same-sex relationships. So they were just questioning whether they were gay. Turns out they were. 15, transitioned and have led successful and reasonably well-contented lives by observation. And since then, transmania happened. And suddenly there's 900 genders. I mean, the algorithm, LGBT, they all fought hard for their rights. These young trans kids who haven't fought hard for any rights are fighting for more than equal rights. Bear that in mind. They're asking for more than equal rights. They're asking for us to allow women into women into sports, trans women into sports who are actually biological males. They beat every woman in every competition because of that fact, because there's an over around 25% advantage in every area of sports to a man. And if you think trans isn't going off the rockers, then there's two examples for you. And I'm going to leave it with the last one. The first one is the Olympics, and they made a statue depicting the Last Supper of Christ in a trans way, in the most grotesque and ugly fashion, to make a statement that they are, and they had famous naked French revolutionaries spray painted in blue, to make a statement that they are a revolutionary force and they disrespect Catholicism and all of its institutions and any institution that's not their ideology. But they're so far divided from reality. Their ideology shouldn't matter, but it has, and we've had to push it back. And they'll still keep pushing forward for quite a while, but we'll get them contained. There are two genders. Let's not make up for, there is middle sex. That is a very rare biological thing. That's true. It's okay. There's three. One's very rare. Two are mainstream. There are no more. There literally are no more. The rest are just thoughts that you have. That's, you know, your identity is not thoughts that you have, unfortunately. Otherwise, we'd need a transcript of those. It's like to call a group racist, you need to prove every single one of the group is racist. To call a system racist, you need to prove every single person in the system is racist. You get my drift. It's a zero-sum game. But, you know, this trans stuff, no. There's not a bit. Someone suggested there might end up being 1 billion genders. I was like, no. Xenopronouns. They're so intensely felt that they can't be audible by anything that can make audible sound is their definition. So it's nothingness. You're like, what do I do with that, you crazy lunatic who came up with that? Neopronouns, because all of these magical new ones don't fit me, so I'm going to make my own ones up. I've never said anyone's pronoun in my life. I'll die before doing it. Literally, I will die before doing it. That's not going to mean I would insult them to their face. I would just call them something else. Nice to meet you. I wouldn't use any pronouns. If they use them, I would politely ignore them. And that's that. But this is the cherry on the top. Who is the current Olympic gold female boxing champion of the world? He's a strapping man with a penis. The Olympic gold winning boxing female champion of the world is a tall man with a penis who beat the crap out of little girls. One so much she had to quit after 40 seconds because she's not supposed to be designed to be hit that hard because of the 25% difference in bone density. So the world has named a male champion for a female sport, which is about beating people up. So they've recognised the male as being the best person to beat up little women. That's how the world is now. We need change soon.